So this is an important budget in the sense that this budget, union budget, which Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present, is going to happen just a few months before what will be India's first ever 5G spectrum auction. Every telco, right from Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel, even Vodafone, is betting on 5G technology as a game changer technology, which is going to transform the face of telecom. So everybody wants to invest aggressively in the upcoming 5G auction. So this budget, by way of relief measures and certain enablers to strengthen the industry position, is critical, and which is why it assumes such a lot of importance, and which is why it is one of the most keenly watched events for the telecom industry. So some major relief measures were announced last September, essentially when the government announced the 4-year moratorium on spectrum payments and AGR payments. So that was a step which was a landmark move from the government, essentially to ease the liquidity woes of the telcos. Then there was another key measure that they announced was, they said telcos won't required to pay any spectrum usage charges for spectrum acquired in future auctions. So those were some of the enabling steps that were announced by the government, essentially to give industry some stability, to keep the 3-player market structure, not leave that undisturbed. But there's a lot of other key enabling measures that need to be done. There are a lot of long-standing demands. For instance, levies are huge. So that is an area where the telecom industry is looking forward to some, response, some enablers from the finance minister. As you know, telecom is one of the most heavily taxed sectors with huge levies. Over 30% of every 30% of every 100 rupees that a telecom company earns goes towards levies, which is amongst the highest in the world. So telecom industry has been crying hoarse for several years for a sharp reduction in levies. So by way of license fees, spectrum usage charges being the main two items. So let me tell you, so the main expectations is that government will reduce the license fee on that telcos currently required to pay. So right now there are two components. The total is 8% of AGR goes towards license fee. Out of that, 5% of AGR goes to the Universal Services Obligation Fund, and 3% is the license fee component. So 3 plus 5 adds up to 8% of AGR. So the telecom industry says the 3% component needs to be reduced to 1%, and the 5% of AGR that goes towards USOF should be suspended for a long period, because there is already nearly 60,000 crores of cash lying with the USOF fund. So in a nutshell, they want the license fee reduced from 8% of AGR to 1% of AGR. That is the first step. They want the SUC, which is the spectrum usage charge component, on spectrum purchases from past auctions. They want that reduced by 3 percentage points, which means currently it is around 4 to 5% of AGR. So that also drops down to around 1 to 2% of AGR. That is the second proposal. The third proposal has been another long-standing demand. There is something like 35,000 crores of input tax credit on GST, which has accumulated, and the industry has been clamoring for a refund of this 35,000 crore, which would definitely improve the working capital situation of the telcos and would also lessen the debt profile of the sector. Now, the fourth measure which the industry is awaiting very keenly is a possible exemption of basic customs duty on 4G and 5G network equipment, especially as we move towards a spectrum auction, this particular proposal becomes very crucial. It would automatically result in a reduction in network rollout costs, because the companies, after all, want these measures. The prime reason being to have the financial headroom and the financial robustness to participate enthusiastically in a 5G auction, which is expected to be very capital intensive. A lot of analysts I spoke to are expecting some headway or some action to happen on the refund of GST input tax credits. So that is a big one where there is a lot of expectation. And the reason why industry has been clamoring for a reduction in the levies and taxes is because the telecom industry is still laden with 8 lakh crores of debt. The ARPU, which is the average revenue per user of telcos, is still well below 150. It's closer to 125 actually, on an average. So that needs to, all telcos, right from Airtel to Jio, Vodafone, everybody believes that the telco ARPUs need to go up to 200 initially and beyond to 300 ultimately, to give industry the financial robustness to sustain the 5G network and spectrum investments that they will be making over the next few months. The auction is expected to happen around April, May. The government is yet to set a firm timeline. So, which is why I said this budget becomes extremely vital for giving the cues, the signals about the government's intent to energize and to empower the telcos to go freely with an open mind, to bid aggressively for grabbing prime 5G spectrum, because the TRAI, as you know, has already started the exercise of recommending base prices for the spectrum, for the 5G spectrum that is going to be auctioned later this year. And so, which is why the budget becomes all the more crucial as a signal, as a possible, driver of major investments in the upcoming 5G deployments.